Since inception, I've passed $30 million of revenue. Now I have 300 units under management.
Wow.
So I got scammed by this whole college thing, thinking that was the right thing to do, and corporate was the right thing to do because like everybody else was doing it. It went from loving my job to boom, like 3 months in, like hating your job, hated my life. I worked every day of the year, did not take a day off, and it was good enough. All of a sudden, every unit that I put on was making 3x the rent. And that's when I said, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. March 2020, COVID happened, and all of a sudden, Airbnb says, listen, we're refunding all your guests for all the reservations going forward until we figure out what's going on. I have no more money. I have this big rent coming up. How do you want to handle this?
Hey guys, I'm here with my friend Syed. Thank you for coming on. He is one of my close friends. He is a Airbnb short-term rental master, one of the very few guys who's crushing it and doing over 8 figures per year. There's nobody in the space that does numbers like this guy right here.
I'm excited to be here. You've been a good friend for the last 4 or 5 years now. I appreciate you coming all the way from California to come meet me here in Chicago. And I'm ready to tell you my story. Let's make it happen.
Syed, I've known for a number of years through another mutual friend, and he's actually a younger brother. We're actually close friends for about 6-7 years, and he told me his older brother was doing this Airbnb stuff. I just wasn't sure what it was at the time. And then we connected a few years later, and I got to learn about his business model, and it was very interesting. And I was wanting to get involved, but a lot of my time was spent doing e-commerce and consulting other businesses. So now we actually get to sit down and dig into Syed's story, how you started Airbnb business before you started, and where he thinks Airbnb is headed. So Syed, if you could tell me what were you doing before the Airbnb business and short-term rental arbitrage stuff?
Yeah, so my initial background is finance. I went to the whole university and did a degree in finance and got a corporate job. My first job, I actually hated a lot. It was doing tax accounting at a mutual fund. And my manager was like a micromanager. She was toxic and she put me down on a daily basis. I hated my life. I worked every day of the year, did not take a day off in busy season, and it was never good enough. And the dollars I was making was not a lot of dollars either. And they put me in like the performance improvement plan, and eventually after a year or so, they ended up letting me go. And then my second job, I also was in finance, but it was at a Fortune 500 company. But it was like a night and day difference experience of how the job was. I was actually really successful at this job. I was getting better than expected reviews on each and every one of my reviews, and I was getting promoted on every like year or year and a half faster than any of my colleagues. It went from having super low confidence from my first job. I thought that I wasn't able to handle this corporate America environment to be an overachiever. So then it goes to show you the situation that you're in is not really what you are. And then eventually, 3-4 years into doing financial analysis, I was getting promoted, everything was good, but I started getting an itch. I wanted to get some side income. Everyone was talking about financial freedom. Yeah, right. Everyone was talking about financial freedom. They were talking about real estate and replacing your 9-to-5 income, getting out of the rat race, and that started getting exciting to me. I started seeing at my corporate job the lifestyle of the people that I wanted to become in corporate, right? And I started seeing my senior managers and my VPs, and I wasn't impressed with their lifestyle. I like nice things, clothes I wear, watch, cars, I like nice things, and these people did not have that, right? Their lifestyle was not something that I wanted to do, and it was gonna take me 15, 20 years to get to that lifestyle. And this is not something that I wanna look forward to. So I started looking for other ways to make money, and everyone talked about real estate. So I started learning about real estate. I went on Bigger Pockets, which was a big thing. I was on the forums on a daily basis. I was listening to the podcast. They were so good.
Was that the first initial interest, how you learn about the Airbnb rental or the retail stuff?
So initially, it was not even about Airbnb. I wanted to go learn about multifamily investing and buying buildings and making cash flow from the long-term tenants to replace my job eventually, maybe again, 10, 15 years down the road. So after listening to a lot of podcasts, I was motivated. I'm like, let's make it happen. And I started reaching out to agents. I started putting offers on properties. And finally, I closed in 2017 on my first property, which was a multifamily property. It was 4 units plus a basement.
Wow.
And I had to live in the unit because I did like low money down financing. And after the year was up, I had a furnished unit. And I was like, what do I do with this now? And I listened to another podcast, and the individual was killing it on Airbnb. So I'm like, okay, this is a simple, easy fit. It's already have it furnished. I'm moving out. Let's see what it could happen. So I listed it on Airbnb in February, which is a very cold month, low travel demand. And I ended up making my market rent, whatever, what I made, like $1,000 on Airbnb for that unit.
So you broke even on that
So
unit.
I broke even.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, it's slow season. Let's see what happens next month. Spring break and stuff is coming up. And then all of a sudden in March, I ended up making 2 times rent. I was like, whoa, can this 2 times rent
There's something
sustain?
there. You're like,
Like the light bulb went off a little bit. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens in April, May, and June. And all of a sudden, when I started getting to May, I started making 3 times rent.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, whoa, this is like this is something that's like amazing. What happens if I make the other units in my building also Airbnb? And at the
You
time,
still had your job at this time right now.
still at my job.
Financial
I still at my job.
Okay.
And at this time, I started being passionate about my side income. I would be in meetings fantasizing about my business and things happening. And I'm looking at my phone and you start losing interest, even though I was doing so good and I was loving my job. I was loving my managers. Everything was good. But once you see the shiny little object in front of you, you start getting excited about it, so passionate about it. And what you had before doesn't seem that exciting anymore. I was like, okay, say I put my other units on Airbnb as well, right? At the time, the leases were up for some of my tenants. They were moving into homes, condos, whatever the case was. And then I put 2 or 3 more on Airbnb in that May, June timeframe. And then all of a sudden, every unit that I put on was making 3x the rent.
Wow.
And that's when I said, okay, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I want to quit my job and do this full time.
So what year was this, by the way? Like around
So
what
this
year?
is 2017. So February is when I started my first month, and it was May, June where I ended up telling my manager, here's my like month's notice.
Amazing.
So it was like 3-4 months in because I was okay, like this is something different.
At that point, 4 months in, was your income halfway or like fully replaced at that time, where you could completely just?
So yes and no. I wasn't living expensive. I had rent. This basically my rent was like $1,400 a month. It was nothing that crazy. I had a paid off. I had a paid off Nissan Altima at the time. It was like nothing. I didn't live lavishly, right? Even though I did have a family, I did have a daughter at the time, but it was like some itch in me. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It went from loving my job to boom, like 3 months in, like hating your job. You start getting anxious.
Exactly like me.
Yeah, you start getting anxious a little bit, right? It starts bothering you when they're telling you about problems that really don't mean a thing. And the conversations at corporate America is, oh, merit increases coming up. What am I getting? 3%, 4%? Okay, that's $20 to your paycheck. What is that? Promotions are coming up, 10% on your promotion. Okay, that's $50 to your paycheck. Well, it didn't do anything for me, right?
After taxes, it's not from the federal state side. Then you got consumer taxes, and all your paychecks pretty much gone.
All of a sudden, I started getting this itch, and I was like, I want to get out and do this full time. And then I went to my family, my friends, my wife, and I don't think not one person said it's a good idea to do that. They said, you're doing good in your corporate job. You're making decent amount of money. At that time, I was like making $85,000 a year.
I want you to be safe. That's their perception.
So family, mom, dad, sisters, brothers, everyone, what are you doing? And then friends are like, are you serious? You don't want to do that. That's too risky and stuff. And wife also, hey, you have a family. What are you going to do?
First they laugh at you, and then you know what I'm saying goes.
Then you says, oh, I knew you were going to do it, right? Like that after you get it done. Yeah. But I believed in myself. And at the end of the day, I always believe in myself. Like I said, if this doesn't work out, I will figure it out somehow, some way. I'll go back and try to get a job. Like that 6 years of experience that I had does not go away. Like I had promotions. I know how to talk. Worst comes to worst, this fails, I'll go back and get a job. Or if this fails, I'll go and do Uber. It don't matter what it is. I'm going to get money, right? No matter what, right? So I had that kind of mindset. But I also had the mindset that I figured something out and I'm going to make something happen, right?
So if you had one thing or two things besides the making money aspect of it, the financial freedom, the time freedom, the car, the Lambos, if you picked one or two things that made you have that trigger point where I want to go into this full time, I can't look back to my job again.
So a big thing was the money aspect of it, even though you said besides the money, but the money aspect was a big thing of it, where I realized I was getting close to replacing my monthly take home from the added Airbnbs I was doing. But I didn't have to wait a year and a half to get to the next one, where I would have to wait a year and a half to get the next promotion to get that extra $5,000-$7,000 a year. But I could get it tomorrow. And then it's just building on top of each other. There's no ceiling, right? When you're in corporate, there's a ceiling. You get paid the X amount of dollars at this like tier of where you are in your career. Just the fact of the money wise, it was a big thing. And the goal was to replace your 9-to-5 income. But all of a sudden, you are very close to that already. You said you were going to do entrepreneurship. I had in my mind all my life that I was going to do that. I got scammed by this whole college thing, thinking that was the right thing to do. And corporate was the right thing to do because everybody else was doing it. And it was almost looked frowned upon if you did anything else. Like society looks at you as if you're dumb or you didn't figure it out. I thought that fancy, nice lifestyle with the nice homes, nice cars comes from college and corporate America, which it can at some point, but it's really, you're working for $1. Your time that you use is exchange for money, right? And
somebody else is monetizing your time,
right? And entrepreneurship, it's almost like you're making other people make you money, right? You get that arbitrage from paying a guy $20 an hour, but he's gonna bring in $40 an hour for you, and then and you get a couple guys like that. You built a little army. You start making some special money. So after I realized corporate America was not what I wanted in my life, I started looking for the side thing. So I found it, right? And then all of a sudden, okay, I'm gonna take action. Let's make it happen. I give my notice to work. My manager was like, okay. They actually came back and said, can you work part-time and you can keep your benefits?
They wanted to keep you desperate.
Yeah.
Decide.
At the time, they're like, yeah, I'll work part-time. I'm like, okay, fine. That sounds good to me. At the same time, when I'm at work, I'm working on my business at the same time. So it's not burdensome or anything. And then
that's an important point. Like when you have a job, it's literally no excuse for you to say, I don't have enough time. When you come home from work, like Syed, what Syed is doing, he had extra hours at work, extra hours at lunchtime, extra hours in the weekend. He's putting all the time in building this side business that turned into a real full-time business that made him like a multimillionaire.
So I created a website. I ended up putting Airbnb management in Chicago. Okay. I spent money on SEO, $1,500 on SEO, nothing. That's because my first thing is, how do I rank on Google? That's how somebody's going to put in on Google. They're going to put Airbnb management Chicago. And because
so you didn't start an Airbnb listing, you started your own website initially.
Right. I had my initial own properties.
Website.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I had my own properties, but I needed somebody to make a website for me. I don't know how to do things. I always find people to do things for me. That's one.
You got to be resourceful. You got to be resourceful. Yeah.
That's one trait that I've had all my life. Don't matter when I was in my life, when I was either in 5th grade or 8th grade or high school, college, I always paid somebody else to do some work for me, whether it was homework, some project, exam. That's how I always was. Like I would pay my sister and like she would do my essays for me. It was just like how I was. And back then it's, oh, you're dumb. You just have everyone do the work. But all of a sudden it becomes, oh, you were really smart because now you're an entrepreneur, and that's exactly what entrepreneurs do.
Arbitrage economy.
Right.
You got to find people who can basically trade their time in.
Right.
And you can make money off of that.
Right. So I created a website, Airbnb management Chicago. I spent some money on SEO, and all of a sudden I got ranked 1 and 2 depending on the day.
Wow.
Because there's no competition in Airbnb management in Chicago. I ended up getting a lot of leads coming in from Google because there was a demand for it. There was only one other company doing it in Chicago at the time. It's still 2017. I'm working part-time and I'm starting to add more units on. And my original business that I started off, it was a Airbnb management agreement where I would share the revenue with another operator who owns the asset, who owns the furniture, and they collect 80% of the rent and I collect 20% of the rent.
Okay.
Or sorry, 80% of the revenue and I collect 20% of the revenue plus the cleaning
Meaning
fee.
like they already had the unit, it was furnished, and you would basically help put people inside the units.
Yeah, they're already on Airbnb, but they're getting tired of handling the guests, getting tired of scheduling the cleaners. They have their professional job. They can't handle a guest that cannot check in at the time, they needed somebody else to do it.
Take care of all the headaches, operational stuff.
So my argument to them was, listen, even after paying me, you're still going to make 20% more doing Airbnb than you would do from a long-term tenant. And I made the argument that I would manage it better than you can, where I could price the unit better than you can. I'll never have a cleaning not show up for that day and you got to block off the calendar. So
you found a pain point and you position yourself to provide value inside that pain point.
So I ended up telling them, it's basically me working for free. You're still going to make the same amount of dollars that you were making before. So I ended up getting some clients. I went from 5 or 6 of my own units to, by the end of the year, I had 10 units at the time with a couple of clients. And fast forward, now I have 300 units under management.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea what 10 units means. 7 years later, it's 300 units, but I'll tell you how I got there eventually. But it was January or December, Christmas time. Everyone's leaving for Christmas break from work. Things slow down.
And so this is the first year still?
First year, 2017 is the first year. They come and tell me, we don't need you anymore. Starting Jan 1, you're laid off, whatever it was, fired, laid off, whatever it is, or voluntary resignation. It hurt me a little bit because obviously you get scared. Like any type, if I took action myself, then I would have been okay, but they forced the action on me. So it's like, oh shit, now what do I do?
They actually let you go. They didn't actually let you.
They saw me checked out. Like I would come in, my hours were like 10 to 2 p.m. It was weird hours. Like, so it was. But it was the best thing for me because then I went in full time. I could go and meet with potential clients during the day.
The blessing in disguise.
Now all of a sudden, Jan 1, 2018, I'm on my own. Now I got to figure it out. I had a little fire in me. I'm like, all right, let me get some more clients. So I had this one strategy where I went onto Airbnb and I looked at Airbnb hosts that were having bad reviews, low review score. And then I ended up reaching out to them on Airbnb saying, hey, I'm a property management company. I could help you run your units. And a lot of people got very upset because I was soliciting business through the Airbnb platform. They got really mad.
Smart.
But all I needed was one person to say yes, right? I had one person that was interested. This person had 25, 30 units on Airbnb. I pitched to them for a couple months, put together proposals, did a lot of work. They finally agreed, yes, you could take on 20 of our units. I'm going to still keep 5, 10 of them. This is once in a lifetime deal.
Wow.
From 10 units to 20 units. And I'm in 2-3 months in of leaving my job. This is going to be all I need to be able to live a comfortable
deal you need, yeah.
Maybe I'll have a net income of $150,000 from this one deal, $200,000 from this one deal. It's going to be amazing, right? But things didn't go as the plan. I spent a lot of time onboarding their units. Their attitude changed significantly. I was getting drunk phone calls at night saying that I'm doing a terrible job managing it. I ended up becoming their assistant, saying, oh, go pick up this $25 parking fee from this building in Wrigleyville.
Oh, wow.
Go do this. Why don't you price this place for that night at this dollar amount? They just were not
happy. Started micromanaging you.
Yeah, started micromanaging me. They agreed on doing certain maintenance of the units that we needed to make it the reviews better. And then that went away. The funding went away for that. And all of a sudden, I'm 4 months in and they take it away from me. They're like, we're not having all units away from me. So that was a devastating blow, right? I thought I was on cloud 9 at one point, but then I started hating working with them. Then they took it away quickly. It quickly went from 10 units to 20 to 30 units back down to 10 units.
Wow. Well, what time frame was this when this happened?
So basically the first quarter of 2018.
Okay, so within 3 months time span.
So by the time March came, and that was when the busy season starts, right? Yeah. The Cubs season start and baseball season starts, and I was gonna start making money, and then they just took it away from me. So it was just like a devastating blow, and that gave me a bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, man, I really don't like this like management model, but that's the only model I know I could do, right? I went
back to a job. You're like,
this is bad. I'm already all in, so there's no going back. So let's see what else I could do. So I randomly go to a networking event, very small one, nothing crazy. It was like at a bar, a restaurant, and it was a small group talking in a circle. And one person speaks up and says, hey, we're looking for people that are interested in Airbnb and doing it in our buildings. And I was like, whoa, like what? Like I've never heard anybody ever say that they want other people to do Airbnbs in our buildings just like that. So I got her contact information. I Googled them. And I found out she works for an individual who owns 1,000 units in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's family-run business, but he has a management company now. Pretty big, 15 people on staff, on the office staff.
Apartment building?
He has 1,000 units of total apartments.
Total apartments,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so like maybe it was like 20 buildings.
20 buildings, okay.
Yeah. And she's, all right, talk to the property manager of the building. So I start calling the property manager. He says, call me next week. Call me in 2 weeks. Call me in next week again. Call me tomorrow. He just kept on going like that for, 3, 4, 5 months. It just kept on the same thing. And I had no ego. I call, no, okay, hang up, call again. I was feeling some type of way. I would call again.
Persistence.
Yeah, persistence. So finally one day he's just come in and talk to me. I'm like, okay, I came in. And he's, I don't know if we could do this. And I'm like, why not? What is your concerns? Oh, I have to get approval from my owner. He's come back again next week. So I started coming into the office. I was messing around with them, joking with them. And then finally he was annoyed of me walking in the office all the time. And then he was like, I'm just going to put you in a room with the owner and you figure it out with him. He says, yes, great. If no, they just leave. Okay. So they put me in a room with the owner. He comes in super alpha, tears me apart, tells me, listen, I'm not getting in the Airbnb business. I'm not buying furniture. I know how to do one thing and that's all I'm going to do. This is not something that I'm going to do with you at all. I'm like, okay, I understand. But in a last ditch effort, I was like, how about I lease 2 of your units? I will furnish it and I will pay you rent and you have no involvement in the risk, furniture, or any of that. He stayed quiet for a second. And then he's, you know what? If you don't cause me any problems and you pay rent on time, take these 2 units.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden,
he's very old school and just said, I don't want to deal with it. But
right.
then just came with an interesting value proposition and you made it super easy for him.
So now all of a sudden it went from this management company that I had that I did 80-20 splits to now I'm guaranteeing rent. And no matter what, busy season, slow season, I got to pay this rent. I just got to make more money on top of the rent. So all of a sudden this term of rental arbitrage came about, which this term didn't even exist. But now if you go on Instagram, you're going to hear the word rental arbitrage. So back in 2018 is when I got into the rental arbitrage business with this landlord who had 1,000 units. At any given time, he had 100 units vacant. Wow. Because that's just how vacancy works. And for any landlord, they want to make sure that they price their units high. So they manage a 5% vacancy, because if they start getting 100% occupancy, then their price is too low. And like their total dollar value is less than if they priced it at a 5% vacancy. Yeah. So you want to keep vacancy at a small, you want to manage your vacancy. So at any given time, we had 100 units vacant. So I went and got 2 units. And then 2 months later, I'm doing well with you in these 2 units. I paid you rent for 2 months. Can I have 2 more? And you've been doing good. Take these 2.
What is being rented out or on and off?
Correct. Rented out.
Okay.
The same model where the rent was $2,000. I come in, I pay for the furniture, which could be like around $10,000.
Okay.
And then the revenue I would make is on average $4,000. So there was a buffer of $2,000 gross profit before my expenses that I would pay. So I would pay the landlord and I make that extra money, right? But the catch was like, how did I get the $10,000 to put it in? I would ask him for concessions up front. So I would say, hey, can we do a 2-year lease? Can you give me 2 months free up front? Mm-hmm. And I'll pay your market rent. And he would be motivated because he has so many units vacant. So in those 2 months that I put in, I recoup my initial investment cost of the furniture.
Smart.
And then now all of a sudden, I don't need outside funding. I don't need debt. I don't need credit cards. And I take that $8,000 and I went back to him. I'm like, can I have 2 more units? But can I get 2 months free up front? So then all of a sudden, I'd use that money to put in the furniture for this. Yeah. And then recoup back. And then I went back to him, can I have 4 more units? And I went back to him, can I have 5 more?
Oh, you structured a deal.
Yeah, right. I just continuously asked him for more units. And it ended up being a good partnership and a good relationship with him. So 2 units initially, and all of a sudden I scale up to 35 units with this one landlord.
Wow. And what time frame?
Within 6 to 12 months was that time frame. So it was really fast.
Fast.
It was really fast, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was getting amazing terms on the deal. Some 2 months free, some 3 months free. I was getting all my investment back right away to recoup back in the business. All of a sudden I had another opportunity that came to me. I'm fueling this furniture and fueling this growth within the business, not having to worry about getting another partner, raising equity, or getting big credit card debt or raising some bank funding or anything. All of a sudden I'm doing this one trick pony of 2 months free, 2 months free up front, 2 months free up front.
Incentives to self-fund the business and start getting like debt or getting investors involved. You just want to keep it clean.
So all of a sudden I'm at 35.
Creative financing.
Yeah, creative financing. All of a sudden I'm at 35 units with him. All of a sudden my relationship with him got a little shaky.
Okay.
So we started doing deals on handshakes because I was adding units so fast. And he was like, oh, we'll do a contract later. We'll do a contract later, which was a big mistake. All of a sudden, once you start getting contract negotiations after you have the deal in, we don't agree on certain terms all of a sudden. And then all of a sudden, we were not friends and partners anymore. And all of a sudden, we stopped talking to each other.
Wow.
Yeah. But we finalized a contract, but now I'm not on good terms with him anymore. And I'm like, okay, now I can't even ask him for more units. He's ignoring my phone call, ignoring my texts. He doesn't care about me. Now, he used to have 1,000 units. Now he has 2,000 units. He's growing his business. I'm like a drop in a bucket to him. He doesn't even care about me anymore, right? At first it was cool and stuff, but like now he doesn't care about me. So I'm like, okay.
Was there anything specific that you say that caused the disagreement or issue?
Yeah, looking back on it, I'm sure I said something wrong. And maybe I talked with ego and something that made him feel some type of way. And that's all it takes.
This guy is going too fast, and the level you went from being that to having 35 units within a year. So this guy is going too fast, maybe.
No, it was like maybe I said something disrespectful. Because some people are old school. If you say something wrong, and they will.
They want you to do good, but never better than them. Sometimes
something, or I was good friends with them, but I said something wrong, and all of a sudden there's no going back from that, and all of a sudden you're just a business relationship now. You're as good as $1 that you gave yesterday to these guys. If they don't see value anymore, they're not friends with you. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's transactional.
Yeah, it's all transactional. Yeah. So whatever the case, I was not on good terms with them anymore, but I still had his units. Now we're on a contract. We're just going by the contract, but now there's no growth. But now I have a good reputation. Now I have, say, 45 units, like 10 of my own units, and then I have 35 with him. And now I'm going to different big property managers in my market. Now I have a pitch to tell them, listen, I'm doing business with this big player that you know, that you handshake with all the time. Can I do a similar model with you? And now all of a sudden, instead of pitching them for 6 months, it ends up being 1 month. So my next big landlord has more units than this guy.
Wow.
And he has it in better areas. So now all of a sudden he starts off with 2 units. I prove to him that I'm doing a good job. Then he adds 4 more units, 10 more units, 20 more, 30 more, 40 more, like in total 40 to 50, whatever it was. Then I started going to the next guy. Now my pitch got even better. I'm doing business with landlord A. I'm doing business with landlord B. Can I do business with you?
They probably all know each other and talking to each other.
All know each other.
Yeah.
Small world. It's a Chicago. There's only a handful of big players, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, okay, yeah, sure. And everything is based on motivation too. If they have a lot of vacancy, if they're in the winter season, they're not going to get it leased up. I'd rather make money than not make money. So they're like, let's try it out. And my portfolio started scaling up super fast. Now, all of a sudden in 2019, by the end of the year, I was at 100 plus units. And the winter time is here. And I'll tell you, 2019 winter time, demand was low. I'm losing money as expected because demand is low. But now I'm growing at the same time because landlords want me in their buildings. I'm losing on a net income basis every month, using all my reserves. It's okay. Let me just get to my busy season of 2020. I started taking on big credit card debt. I opened up maybe 10, 15 credit cards. Oh, wow. Yeah, because they just kept on approving me. And I'm charged up furniture. And then I started getting some private loans from family. And all of a sudden, I have $200,000-$300,000 worth of losses from the winter time, plus like $200,000-$300,000 of debt. And I added 60 units during the winter time. And now I'm at maybe 160 to 180 units coming March of 2020. And this is the start of our busy season. I have nothing in my name, no dollars anymore, but I'm going to start making money now. As you guys know, March 2020 is when the announcement of no flights allowed anymore. COVID is out.
COVID is happening, yeah.
And all of a sudden, Airbnb says, listen, we're refunding all your guests for all the reservations going forward until we figure out what's going on. And that was literally like a knockout punch to me because I had no more cash, but now I have a $500,000 rent payment. I have 50 employees that I have to pay, and I have $0 in my name.
You said how much?
$500,000 of rent.
$500,000
yes,
in rent payment
per month. Yes.
Insane.
So all of a sudden, all my money goes away. And literally, we were affected first out of all industries. Travel, because it's, if you go on a flight, you're bringing COVID from this place and that place.
No, I remember specifically. Right. It was insane. Yeah.
So before it hit any other industry, before everybody knew it was going to affect their work, right? So it affected us first. And all of a sudden, it hit my industry so bad. It hit me so bad. I was like, okay, this is done. I'm over with. I'm going to lose all my assets that I accumulated. I'm going to have to go figure out how to get a job. There's no way of coming back from this. Right?
Imagine the stress at
No,
that time.
oh yeah. But at the same time, it was extremely stressful, yes. But it was almost like the Band-Aid was ripped off so fast. It was not a slow death. Like I wasn't bleeding out. I was just like, boom, it happened so fast. So it's okay, I lost it. I tried, I was successful. At one point, it's like, I'll try to find another job now. But let me sit down and think of, in a perfect world, what are the things that need to happen for me to continue this business? Mm-hmm. So I made a list. Like I wrote it down on my phone, and I needed these 10 things to happen. As a last ditch effort, I'm going to try these 10 things. And if I survive, great. One being the biggest one was I had to talk to the landlords. Mm-hmm. And I went to the landlords and I gave them 3 options. I was like, listen, I have no more money. I have this big rent coming up. COVID happened. How do you want to handle this? I gave them option 1. Can we get on a revenue share where back to the 80-20 that I had originally? Or I asked them, can we do 50-50? Whatever dollars come in, I'll give you 50%, and then I'll keep the other 50%. Only I just want enough money to pay my employees and to pay my rent.
I understand about the time, a lot of businesses were struggling, and you got the PPP loans and the grants and everything coming out.
But the thing is, at that time, it was so new to everybody. They didn't know I was going to interact. Yeah, it was premature because it hit me first, right? And then the second option was allow me to terminate the leases, pick up my stuff, or leave my stuff, like my furniture in the units, and just get out of the building. Mm-hmm. And then option number 3 was like, okay, I stay in your building, you could sue me for anything I have, and make me go bankrupt. So on those 180 units, maybe 40 of those units, the landlord said, listen, we're not COVID charity. We're not going to give you a break. We're going to sue you until you have nothing. You better pay me or else I'm going after you. 40 units, the landlord said, you could pick up your stuff and leave, or leave your furniture and leave. But the most important thing, my two biggest landlords that I had 90 units with said, okay, let's try this revenue share agreement. Let's try seeing how it works for 2 months. And then if it doesn't, we terminate and leave. I said, okay, great. Eventually, the landlords that said, we're going to sue you until you have nothing, settled with me because they started realizing 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, how it was going to affect the whole world. And I gave 2 months payment to get out of the lease. 3 months payment to get out of lease, or whatever the case was, they settled with me. At first, it was like, if you don't pay me, I'm going to shoot you. A landlord said that to me. Oh. Yeah, but I used that as leverage to talk to lawyers to finally settle on the thing. So you use anything, like if once those words come out, and then I said I had a witness, like I started, you got to play the game. Yeah. Not like I was scared of my life or nothing, but it was the best thing he could have said to me. That's funny. Someone says, I'm going to shoot you is the best thing. That's what he said. But that ended up getting lawyers on the phone and we settled. So,
everything's leverage. Yeah, everything's leverage.
Yeah. So that happened. So all of a sudden I went from 180 units to 90 units, but I'm on a revenue share. My biggest expense of rent is not there anymore. Like I don't have to pay rent. Whatever money I make, I split it between my landlord. Okay. And then what happened was the demand for short-term rentals in Airbnb in 2020 was not as bad as we thought it was going to be. Airbnb started being a cleaner option than hotels. Hotels were like a revolving door of people coming in with disease. And Airbnbs, people stay in their apartments, and you won't get sick.
I've stayed at hundreds, like in consulting years, hundreds and hundreds of hotels. It's insane. It's disgusting. Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden, my demand is pretty strong. And all of a sudden, I'm making money. And I'm giving my landlords 50% of the revenue, 60% of the revenues. They're happy. And now all of a sudden, I fix my problem of COVID. And I'm in business, while many of my colleagues are no longer in business because they weren't able to figure it out.
Right. They couldn't pivot.
There was other things that worked in my favor. One, I had to refinance one of my properties and pull cash out, and I injected $120,000 from that. The EIDL loan came in $150,000 to inject to pay off my credit card debt. PPP, because my workers,
like a couple $100,000 a credit card debt or something like that.
So I basically moved loan to loan. So like,
at least you got a lot of points, possibly.
Right. I'll start going to Dubai or something with those points. But all of a sudden, PPP comes in. I was excited thinking that I was going to get money for PPP, but they don't include contractors part of your PPP.
There's always something.
You had to be a W-2. So I didn't make money off PPP. I made like $25,000, but anything helped me at that time. So all of a sudden, I'm paying off my family because I felt bad that I took money from my family and I didn't have any more money to pay it back. But I paid out my family, I paid out my credit card debt. I don't have that monthly obligation for lease anymore. And now I'm 50-50 with these landlords. Like life is good right now. I'm making enough money to keep my family okay.
Compared to a little while ago, you're like, oh my God, I'm about to go bankrupt. Go back to your job. And you just figured it out.
Yeah,
amazing.
Exactly.
Amazing.
All of a sudden, because companies were going bankrupt, an opportunity came to me. A once in a lifetime opportunity came to me. There was this big VC-backed company called Stay Alfred. They had 1,000 units all over America. They used all their funding and they needed to do a funding raise, but no investment company wanted to inject money in our industry at that time. So they had to go bankrupt. So now all of a sudden they have a bunch of furniture in 1,000 units all around the country, and they're not paying their landlords anymore.
Wow.
And an individual came to me and said, you should offer on the furniture. You could get some assets for cheap. And at that time, I didn't even know I was going to survive. What offer am I going to give? What am I going to do with that crap? I can't even continue my business.
To take the furniture off the properties?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll pay $100 from. I'll pay $200 for max. It's like, okay, offer $200. It costs $10,000 to furnish a unit. If you offer $200, that might be a good deal. You could sell the furniture if something happens. 3, 4, 5 months later into 2020, into COVID, they came back to a response with me. They're like, hey, we accept your offer. How many apartments do you want? And I was like, okay, now all of a sudden I'm in business again. The landlords are happy with me with doing this revenue share. And all of a sudden, Stay Alfred's bankruptcy attorney comes and says, I accept your offer. And they're like, do you want these 20 apartments with the furniture for $200 a piece? So it was like $4,000 or whatever. I don't know.
What a deal.
Yeah, $4,000 for these 20 units. And then I go to my landlord. I'm like, it seems like you have some vacancy. Can we continue to add units at this revenue share model? And they were hurting too at a point. And a lot of people were not renting units because they were stuck to where they were. And then they're like, yes, we'll give you units. So now all of a sudden I'm taking furniture from this bankruptcy and then putting it into landlord units. So it was like a match made in heaven, perfect opportunity. So I put these 20 units into 20 apartments. And then I go back to the bankruptcy attorney, can I have 20 more? And then I take those 20 and then I put it in some more apartments. And then I'm like, can I have 50 more apartments with the furniture? Now I have to start getting warehouses all over the country, 4 different warehouses of furniture. I'm going to Atlanta, I'm going to Ohio, Minneapolis. I wanted to go to places nearby because I couldn't go too far, like California. There was opportunities everywhere. And I ended up buying 150 apartments with the furniture for pennies on a dollar.
Wow.
And this is maybe $1 million to $1.5 million worth of assets that I got for like $20,000.
They were just trying to liquidate the
right. They were trying to liquidate it. Right.
Money.
And they actually just needed it to leave the apartments because the landlords were pissed off that they're occupying their spaces, not paying rent, and just having their furniture there. So they just needed to leave these apartments. So now all of a sudden I have this once in a lifetime opportunity of this furniture for pennies on a dollar, and I have it on warehouses. And now the landlords are coming to me. Okay, let's add more units. Let's add more units. But don't get me wrong, it's not just $20,000 for $1 million worth of furniture, 1.5. I had labor costs, movers, I had freight costs, and I had warehousing costs. And I had to literally create a logistics company overnight. I started Googling, how do I get a truck? How do I get workers? I figured out there's Uber Freight, where you could literally, like how you get an Uber for your car to pick you up, you get an Uber for a truck. At the time.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, and then I don't know if they have it in business anymore. Maybe it didn't work out, but a truck shows up and you just got to fill it in and then it comes to the place. Logistics company overnight, and probably all in, it was like 10 cents on the dollar, which is, again, amazing. And all of a sudden, landlords are saying, put this furniture in our units. You're doing good. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to add units again. I went from 180 to 90, and now I'm adding a whole bunch of more units. So then in 2021, where they're like, okay, listen, we can't do this revenue share anymore. Let's go back to the lease model. Can you afford the lease? I'm like, yeah, I can. I still want to stay in business. I have a lot of units with you. Let's start paying rent again. But they took me out of my slow season, and so I didn't take the losses from the slow season like I would every year. And all of a sudden they say start rent in March. Okay, fine. Then 2021 ended up being my like record year. I had $7.5 million worth of revenue, but I missed my slow season losses. And all of a sudden I have a net income of $1.5 million in just 1 year in 2021. So that was like a big year for me. Like that like changed like my life. That was like when I was on top of the world. My lifestyle changed because the cars started changing. I'm starting to buy exotic cars now. I moved from like my apartment to a nicer home. Life was really good. And I felt like I did something, again, you call it lucky or you put yourself into lucky situations, but I got lucky again, right?
I don't believe in luck. I think it's just the being persistent and putting yourself at the right place at the right time, and you just create your own luck. Because you can reduce the percentage of luck by putting the right action, doing the right things. So some people, like winning the lottery is luck, right? Right. But doing the right things, being around right people, going to the right masterminds and networking meetings and making the right moves and being persistent, you create your own luck.
I agree. So to continue on my story, so I had this vision in my market, in one of my biggest markets, Chicago, where because of COVID, the supply decreased significantly because people went out of business, people aren't traveling, they want to get out of Airbnb. So the supply decreased like 50% in Chicago. Oh. And I had this vision saying that, look, if I add all this furniture into units, I believe there's going to be pent up demand for my market. There's going to be a low supply and the demand's going to go back to pre-COVID levels. And in 2022, that's exactly what happened that summer. Now, all of a sudden, I have 250 units. The supply in Chicago is now 30% less, but the demand is even more than pre-COVID levels. And now, all of a sudden, that summer of 2022, I had record numbers, $1.5 million of revenue in June, maybe $600,000 of net income in 1 month. And it was crazy. All the mask mandates went down. My gamble, you could call it gamble, or my vision of what I thought would happen exactly hit to T. And I felt like on top of the world once May, June came. I can't believe I pulled this off. I had my 2021 that I pulled off. Now I pulled off this.
All that pent-up demand kind of exploded.
And it exploded in 2022.
Plus all the bankruptcies, the pent-up demand,
Right.
you became like a bigger player in the
Yes.
market.
Now all of a sudden I have a lot of units, and now all of a sudden there's low supply, demand's way high, so my rates are way crazy high, and now all of a sudden again I'm making once in a lifetime type money in this 1 year. So I thought there was a lot of pent up demand in the summertime, but there was a like Chicago fatigue in the wintertime.
Yeah.
People all traveled in the summer, and now all of a sudden nobody traveled in the winter. So now I'm taking losses that I never expected that I would ever take. I was totally off my forecast. For one, I ended up hiring a crazy amount of people. My staff ended up becoming like 100 resources.
Wow.
Because I had this vision of me having 400 units, me having $17 million of revenue. So I made my dream team according to that. I started making jobs of, you're only doing utilities, you're only doing screening. I started breaking things apart. I had this vision, I was gonna hit this, so I started hiring a lot. And all of a sudden, there was Chicago demand fatigue, and my winter was way worse than I expected. November, where I sometimes break even, I ended up getting a $350,000 loss in November.
Wow.
December, again, is not a crazy loss. I ended up getting another $350,000 loss.
Was this one of the largest losses you
Yes.
experienced?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I had the most money I had in my bank account, all of a sudden 50% of it goes away in the 2 months in November, December.
Wow.
And now January comes, not a $350,000 loss. Now it's a $400,000 loss. So now all of a sudden I have 25% left of my reserves in my bank account. February comes, another $350,000.
Scary.
Now I'm in negative.
Wow.
Now I have zero cash in my bank account. Now I'm back to the same thing that I did pre-COVID. That year where I had credit cards, I ended up delaying rents for 5 days. I ended up auto paying utilities. I had zero cash on me. I really need to get to spring, or else I'm back to what happened
Need
to
somebody
me.
to float you over.
Yeah, I'm like back to what happened to me pre-COVID, and my business is done again.
But now at this point, you're like almost like double and triple in size.
Right.
Too.
So my loss double and triple as well. Like,
Wow.
so it goes both ways. If you win big, if you lose big too. So I finally make it to March, April, and I in debt again. I have no cash. I'm thinking about selling my exotic cars to just keep me afloat now. You got to do what you got to do. And then summer, I make it somehow, some way by delaying rents, doing all this crazy stuff. I'm in debt, but now I'm still here in summertime. Let's see if things are back to pent up demand levels and things are going crazy again. And I'm excited. I'm back in summer. I'll pay off all my debts. But now all of a sudden, the pent up demand of Chicago goes away.
Wow.
2023 is maybe 15, 20% less than 2022. So now all of a sudden,
What do you think contributed to that? What do you think from your?
it's pent up demand of pre-COVID.
Okay.
That supply started increasing again slightly, but that was not the main driver. But also hotels started opening up, where the occupancy ended up going back to hotels, and a lot of bashing on Airbnb in the media, talking about Airbnb bus, cleaning fees, partying, like all this crazy shit was happening. Yeah, happening in the media. Demand went down, and what was annoying was, if you looked at the ranked cities in the country year over year, how much like demand or what was the rates from 1 year to another, Chicago was second to last on the list.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was not even a national thing that was happening. It was a niche thing that happened in Chicago. Chicago was worse than what was happening nationally. Nationally it was okay. Demand was flat, but Chicago was not. So all of a sudden,
You think it's like weather related? You think, let's say Texas or California, you think it would have been a little different?
Yes. Each market has its own story.
Okay.
So Texas markets have their own story. Like Austin, there was a huge media stuff about the demand was down 40% year over year because of oversupply, because everyone saw Austin, Florida, Arizona as markets that they want to get into for Airbnb, because those were the markets that were open during COVID time. And everybody wanted to just get out of the craziness in the urban cities, so they wanted to go down to these southern markets and cheaper real estate.
No taxes as well, incentives, things like that too.
So everybody was flying out to Austin, Scottsdale, and all of a sudden there's an oversupply over there, and demand comes back to normal, and they're hurting even more than Chicago. But Chicago was down, right? Starting to pay off my debt a little slower than I expected. So your confidence level goes lower. Things affect your outlook on things. But the summer ended up being okay. I still am profitable than what I was before. But the pent-up demand is now still above 2019 levels, but not 2022 or 2021 levels. So it's still a sustainable business model. But I've realized that, one, I remember I told you I hired a dream organization thinking that I was going to get to $17 million of revenue and 400 units. I got to 300 units, but now all of a sudden I'm losing units. Landlords are not renewing me on leases. There was a fire in a building and it took 30 units away from me in that building. Things started happening where I started losing units. So now no longer am I hitting $17 million and 400 units. Now I'm even losing under 300 units. Now I'm like 250.
Wow.
But I had an organization to sustain me to 400 units, right? I hired to thinking that I was going to get to 400. So now all of a sudden I have too many people, payroll expenses, and I didn't need these people. So then I had to recently, like a month ago, I took a huge cut to my staff. I talked to colleagues to see similar sized businesses as me and how are you running your virtual assistant organization? Because majority of my business is based out of Philippines. And I found one colleague that has a similar type of org as me, but he had way more units than me. And he had the same amount of people as me. So I was like, whoa, that means that I am overhired just like I expected. I didn't hit my targets. I didn't hit my revenue. Demand's down year over year. I need to make a cut. So I went from 50 resources in Philippines down to 35. I let go of maybe 7 resources in the US, which was majority contractors and stuff.
By the way, these resources, they're customer service, apartment cleaning, that kind of stuff. That what they're doing overseas? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Okay. I could get into more of like how the org setup is at some point. Summertime comes, demand's down. I'm still making money, which is good. I let go of people, so now I have like expense savings, so that's good for me too. And then now I'm going into the winter time. I have a good cash reserves on me right now. And I have my forecast on how much money I'm going to lose in this winter time, comparing it to how much I lost last year. So basically, if I made $1.2 million this year and I have cash reserves of 1.2, now I know I'm going to have a $1.5 million loss in the next 4 or 5 months now, based off of my last year results. That's the only thing I know. So now I'm going to have a shortage of $200,000-$300,000 again. And now I have to inject money back into the business or do the crazy shit.
It's expected. It's not just coming out of something. You know what's going on.
But I had this little thing in the back of my mind is I'm hoping this winter is not as bad as it was last winter. That was an exception. So my problem is in my forecast is you could only do your forecast based off of like historicals and some type of assumption going forward. But every year my historicals has a whole different story. I've been off my forecast every single damn time, but there's explanations to why. But then it's like, what's going to happen this year? So it almost made me paralyzed in any type of investments that I can make or growth or anything, because I don't know what the hell is going to happen in the next 4 or 5 months. We're here in November now, and I'm going to beat my conservative forecast in November. So I'm hoping now it's
laws,
like
regulations, Airbnb restrictions, could pop out completely out of your control.
So then I don't know what's going to happen. So now I'm in a position where my cash account is healthy, but now I'm going into my winter time where I got to save. So I'm not doing much. And then all of a sudden there's like all these problems and stress the business causes me as I scaled, where it's, man, I don't know if I want to get to this 400 unit count anymore. I'm getting too many lawsuits from this and that, too many landlord problems that I'm getting from the landlords. I want to keep a sustainable model and keep it as long as possible. So maybe this 300 unit count is the model that I want to take on.
Anybody I've met has been super successful, done more than 7 figures, especially 8. Not one of them out there has like not been sued. Every single one of them has been sued.
It does take a toll on you though. And then you start thinking, okay, if you're making 8 figures, $10 million of revenue a year, you take home $1 million. If you end up doubling that, is your life going to get that much better? Or also, if you double that, is that going to end up bringing you more problems that takes everything away? Like say I have 10 landlords. Is my 11th landlord that I get, the new landlord, is going to be the reason why I have 0 landlords? You got to think of it like that too. And I'm at this position where I have the nice things that I wanted in life. I have the cars, the Lambo, the Rolls. Now I'm looking to get the vacations and like the lifestyle change. I don't think I need that. Go balls out 400, 500, 600 units. Maybe just keep this 300 unit business model. And okay, now maybe potentially create a personal brand. Let's see if you can make money based off your experience that you have. Because I'll tell you, there's not many people like me that have done this business. Everybody on social media is maybe 1% of what I've done in my real business. And I've never been on social media. Now all of a sudden, 6 months ago is when I started getting on social media, letting people know what I did, right?
There's a lot of people on social media I see all the time. They get 1 or 2 units and then all of a sudden they become gurus and they want to teach people how to do it and they can make money. But Syed actually is a seasoned Airbnb rental arbitrage professional. So my respect.
So thank you, appreciate it. So basically for me, I could tap into this market in the education space, teach people how to properly run the business, allow them to not go through the problems that I went through, or help them resolve those problems. And that's the value I bring versus that cookie cutter Instagram social media like hooks that they give and to let people to buy their course. And then it's people that don't even know how to run the business. It's just they're good at their marketing on social media, right?
For delivery, yeah. They
Right.
come in and when it actually comes to delivery and actually providing real help, they literally have no
Right.
answers.
So that's like my proposition to people and getting into my like coaching and mentoring space, which I haven't started yet in the sense that I haven't launched a sellable product yet. I've had significant amount of people who I helped start the business who have scaled to $1 million businesses in the Airbnb space. For now, I'm just growing my social media, but at some point I'm going to monetize it. And then, but I'm not in a rush because I'm still making money from my real business, right? So that's where I'm at now in November 2023. Yeah, so it's a lot. I know I said a lot.
It's amazing. So many interesting key elements to the story. He's developed so many good things and bad things. He learned so many different lessons in his business, and he's actually teaching. Look at his whole school system, right? Education system. One of my biggest complaints is with a lot of professors is that they go in and teach a bunch of theory, but they have no real world experience. I'm talking about the YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys, they come on social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and they make a bunch of videos. 90% is just complete fake. You actually have real world experience. You know what you're doing. You actually experience the business and you deal with the stress because you're talking about you want to go from 100 to 200 to 400 units. So very well, you get paid to relative to the stress you want to deal with. But at some point, how much stress is too much? So you don't want to deal with the stress anymore.
Right.
So next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, so you want to build your personal brand. I think you will be obviously an amazing mentor and helping a lot of other people. I think Airbnb and rental arbitrage is not going away. Where do you see it going in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
So I would say this business model is such a new business model. It's a baby to what other like businesses out there. The real estate business property management model has been there for so long. It has been institutionalized where margins have decreased to be so efficient. Our industry has really started in the last 5, 6, 7 to max 8 years, right? And it's just so new. The margins are so healthy in this business where there's a lot of room for error. Right now at 20% margins, you're comparing to a restaurant like McDonald's, a chain restaurant McDonald's, like the margins might be like 3, 4, 5% net income margins, right?
They bet on volume just for making money.
They bet on volume, where in this model, it's like the margins are so healthy. For me, my margins are at like 15 to 20% at a scalable model. I have so many people helping me in this business. A lot of the people from 5 units to 15, 20 units, like the margins could be 35, 40% because there's a lot of them doing a lot of the work. So there's such opportunity in this, but you have to be in the correct markets. You have to take on the right deals. You have to operate the right way, or else you could quickly get into the wrong market and an oversaturated market where everyone said, oh, this is a perfect place to have an Airbnb. So everyone rushes to that market. There's no regulations, nothing stopping from anybody starting the business. It's a low barrier to entry business. But all of a sudden, you quickly can go under with the sense that you're not making enough revenue from the demand on Airbnb to how much you pay in rent and expenses. So if you do choose the right market, you do run the business the right way with virtual assistants, with softwares, automate things.
Good systems.
And you price your unit the proper way using, again, revenue management software, some strategies in revenue management. And you can work with the coach to help you with that model so you don't make the mistakes that other people might make.
You're doing forecasts and historical data.
So it's if you choose the right market, right niche, you will be successful in this business. But if you don't, you quickly go the wrong way, and then you could call this business a scam or fraud, or you could call it like Airbnb bust. But all the media is saying Airbnb bust, while I made $1 million of net income this year. Is it really an Airbnb bust for me? No. And can I provide that same type of coaching to mentoring to somebody else to not necessarily do exactly me at 300 units, but 5 to 10 units, 15 units is enough to replace your 9 to 5 job.
1%
right?
or 2%, 5% of what you've done, people will be able to quit their job
With
and live
their
a
job.
nice lifestyle.
And yeah,
easily.
they live the lifestyle they want to live. My lifestyle that I want to live is different than everybody. Not everybody wants that lifestyle. I joke around with people in our group, or I want that Dubai lifestyle, I want the Lambo lifestyle, I want that lifestyle. And that's okay because I'm going to work to get it, right? But not everybody wants that. People want freedom, time freedom, family freedom, financial freedom. They don't want to rely on that 9 to 5. If you remember, it was the less risky thing to have a job, but all of a sudden people were getting a bunch of layoffs, like high corporate positions. IT was getting laid off. There is like nobody was safe anymore. So it's just then is a corporate job safe? No, it's not.
100% no.
People working somewhere for 20, 25 years, they let you go in a second. They don't care.
There's no loyalty. Yeah, there's no loyalty. I mean, the whole corporate structure is a scam. The whole school system, you go to school for 4 years, and don't even use 98% of stuff you learn in school, and then you graduate with a chance to get a job. Let me paycheck to paycheck, and then basically somebody's telling you, I can pay you $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year. They buy 1 year of your life, they monetize it. They give you 5 to 10% raise every single year. Right. And after 30% of taxes are taken away from your paycheck from the federal state side, then you got another 10% taken away from the consumer side, and you're left with nothing. And then you're trying to have this lifestyle. If you have the desire, if you want to make that extra side income, I think Airbnb and mental arbitrage, I think is one of the best and cleanest ways.
I highly encourage it. I encourage it with all my friends and family, and my brothers, my sister, my cousins, my good friends, all are in the business now, but they still have their 9-to-5 job. Some have left. My sister left. My brother also left. I have a friend that has left. So it varies. You could have a scalable model like me and have 100 employees and do all this, or you could do it with a one-man shop and then have the lifestyle that you want to have. So I highly recommend it to my people. And obviously now I'm in the business of providing support to help people be successful in that business.
I just saw Syed's story the other day. He just cut like a $200,000-$300,000 check to the IRS or something.
Oh yeah. More money, more problems.
Man,
yeah. So
that was insane. You can see how he's doing real numbers, because obviously the amount he's paying to the federal government for the taxes, which is insane.
I'm not proud of that, but yeah.
It was like a Lambo Ferrari right there.
Yeah, I know. It was funny. Like one of the years when I made that $1.5 million net income, like it was like December. I was like, man, I don't want to pay this like huge tax. Should I buy 2 Rolls Royces? Like 2
business marketing expense. Put your company name on there.
So Cullinan is 6,000 pounds, and that would be a 100% write off. I was thinking about buying $1 million worth of cars to not pay a $400,000 tax bill that 1 year, but I didn't have the balls to do that. But I've done that after, because I'm like, okay, now I really got to take action. I got to lower my taxable amount. There's a lot of strategies that you should buy some real estate, cost segregation, take that depreciation. Mm-hmm. I have not taken that action because of my unsustainable cash flows that I have because of my seasonality, because I need to be liquid. And I buy my cars because they are so liquid. Like tomorrow, if I needed to sell the Lambo, I could trade it in and get 80-90% of the cost that I spent on the Lambo, right? Mm-hmm. So that'll inject money, right? Yeah. So as you've done the same similar model as me, is these are like hacks. Like these are the car hacks. And when we pay $275,000 for this Lambo, I might sell it for $270,000. I might only spend $5,000 for it. It costs less than a Honda Civic, right? To me, for somebody else who bought a Honda Civic, they might lose 15-20. So these cars are liquid. They're good investments. You could argue with me that they're not. They are, and I believe in it. And that's why I have like a handful of them, like 4 or 5 of the exotic cars.
Which ones do you have right now?
So I have the Lamborghini Huracan Evo.
Yeah.
I have the Rolls Royce Wraith. I have the Acura NSX, and then I have a G-Wagon.
Which one's your favorite right now?
So NSX is my favorite because it's so rare. People with Lambos, even though it's half the cost of a Lambo, but to me, it's like a beautiful car. And I really like it. It's a good daily exotic. Yeah. But each car has its purpose. The Wraith has the lights and beautiful, right?
So
and it's
classy,
like classy, right?
Yeah,
and then people think it's a $500,000 Rolls Royce when I really got it for $185,000 because the sticker was like almost $400,000. The car is super nice too. Every car has a purpose. Different day of the week, you know.
Yeah, like you were saying, it could be assets you can use because you take a regular car like a Toyota or a Honda or a Nissan or something. Yeah. Those cars will go from 100 down to 0% depreciation. Yep. Exotic cars go from 100 to about maybe 70-80%, and then we'll go below that. Let's stay at that. But if you buy one at the right price and the right model and the right year, you could literally buy one, ride it around for 6 months a year, and then pretty much sell it, and maybe at the most lose sales tax, and you pretty much almost like ride it for free, which is super fun thing. Have you got to watch as much at all?
So I have my watch, my one watch. It's just a Datejust entry-level Rolex. It's nice. It's got the blue face, but I want to get into the AP market. I know you're rocking the AP. I saw that when I was walking in. Inshallah, one day.
Inshallah.
Yeah. The problem is you can't get them from the dealers, so then you got to get a secondary market, then you're paying premium. And then also, I don't know what's going on with my cash flows all the time, so it's hard. That's why I know cars though. Like I feel comfortable in that car market. That's the market I play in because it's like liquid to me.
What would be your dream car? What would you say?
I have surpassed all my dreams on my car. Like my dream car back in the day was an R8, which you had an R8, right? I even actually skipped that and went above that to the Lambo. Now I need to start checking off boxes of, I tried the McLaren. I had the McLaren and then I had the Ferrari.
The 570S, right?
Yeah, I had the 570S and then I had the Ferrari 458. I had the AMG GTS. So it's like almost like, all right, I want to check off the Porsche GT3 RS. And then at some point, I want to pass that $300,000 level of cars and start getting into $400,000 or $500,000 cars.
Or SVJs.
Oh yeah, SVJ, SF90, 765 LT. Like eventually, those goals, right?
Yeah,
you should,
they're achievable. They're achievable. They're
if you told me I would have what I had right now, I would not expect that.
Yeah.
I will try to. I always want to do better in life, and I always want to work for something. I'm never going to be complacent, 100%. And it could be a good and bad thing. I'm never satisfied, right? Yeah. But I want to enjoy what I have. I don't want to quickly progress to the next levels. I'm going to enjoy what I can go through now.
Always work hard for more.
Then go to the next level, then the next level.
I would say you should always shoot for the moon to land in the sky, or instead of shooting for the sky, land in the mountains, or shoot for the mountains and land in the dirt. So shoot as high as you can, and then you land in the sky. And that's just, I think, my philosophy in life. And you're a prime example of trying to push it to the next level.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I agree with that for sure.
So right now you're focused on your personal brand. Yeah. You want to help other people out. I know there's conferences and meetups and masterminds. What are some conferences, like if people are interested in Airbnb, they could potentially attend?
When I got into the personal brand scene, I didn't even know how many people are doing this. You just ignore it when you're not in it. I found out that there's so many conferences of people in the short-term rental space, of people that I didn't even know existed, because they never had the business that of size that I had. So they would have their like 5-10 units, and they'd all of a sudden be an expert, and all of a sudden they would get all the speaking engagements, throwing their own little mini conferences. And then, so there's a lot out there. But if you're an entry-level person, those are so valuable. You should always go to a conference, not to learn from like the speakers, which could be good, some not, but the networking aspect of conferences is all the value. I went to a conference a month in Orlando, and I did not go to one speaker's. It's like sitting in a college classroom listening to a professor. I just can't do it. But the value I got from shaking hands with people that I potentially will do business with from
it's
a soft
10, 20x, 100x.
Yeah, like the CEOs of the software companies, you go up to their booth and shake their hand, and then now they have a face to each other. Business transactions, it comes from meetings. Go to conferences, go to little real estate meetups. Start presenting yourself as an Airbnb operator. Change your LinkedIn, get a business card, say you do Airbnb so you fit the picture.
Position yourself as
position yourself. A little fake it till you make it. You got to do what you got to do to make it happen. But if you come in saying, oh, hey, I'm a teacher, I'm interested in Airbnb, versus saying, hey, I'm an Airbnb entrepreneur, I'm looking to get XYZ units in this neighborhood. Do you know anybody that's doing it? Here's my card. Here's my link. Like, brand yourself as if you're an entrepreneur doing it already. If you're passive and you're not acting like the part, then you're never going to make it happen.
100%. I think also experience speaks for yourself too. You're 100% right. You don't want to go into a position where you have no experience at all. You're trying to teach people. I've seen like quite a bit of that happen. But when somebody's talking to you and then you answer their question, depending on like how deep you answer a question, people can easily see that this person has a lot of experience in XYZ industry, and they're an actual credible expert to talk to. I would never go to cardiologists and ask them for NASA advice, or go to a NASA astronaut and ask them about cardiologist advice. So you have to go to the right people and ask them for the right advice. And like you were saying with the networking aspect, networking is so important. I think last year I spent almost $100,000 going to mastermind networking events, things like that, because for the same reason, I value the networking aspect of it. The content is cool, it's very high level, but when you get to shake hands, get phone numbers, I got added to a group chat with a bunch of top guys. You just get into the right rooms and you position yourself that I'm an expert. It creates opportunities. And whether the business that you're in, but let's say you're trying to get into e-commerce, you're trying to get into buying a private jet or something, or maybe you want an investment in crypto. So I think getting to the right opportunities allows you to have that avenue open up as well too. Any other ways you want to take your money and you want to put into crypto or stocks? You're looking at diversifying. Have you looked at anything else?
So I learn about the things, but I never take action in any of those things where you could say it's good or bad. I never bought, actually I bought a little bit of crypto, but never anything like I'm in the crypto group to learn. I never buy stocks. I do one thing and one thing only, and I call myself a one-trick pony. And sometimes if you focus on just one thing and one thing only, you end up growing that pretty substantially. And that's what I'm about.
You go vertically deep.
Right. I'm good at Airbnb. I'm not good at e-commerce. I'm not good at crypto. I will not tell myself as an expert, but I'll listen to you. I'm interested. I want to get motivated by what you're telling me, and okay, maybe I should do it. And maybe that learning makes me take action at some point. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I know anything about those things. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I have to get into everything, because I'm a believer of focus on one thing.
There's so many things I want to get into just because I like to have my hands on a lot of things. I'm good at like the online marketing space, making millions of dollars online. But if I'm good to Airbnb, I will come talk to you. If I'm good, if I want to get into, let's say, PR or crypto or stocks, this guy's good at, he's made millions of dollars. Let me talk to him. So I pay money to get access to this person and have him invest for me, because it's impossible for me to learn all the different things. It's better to have access to other people who are good at this other thing, so you can have access to them. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, I believe in you get the value from somebody that's doing the thing, right? And then I believe the only way to get that value is if you provide value. If you can't just come to the table without just asking questions and not being able to provide value yourself. So even like in our crypto group, I like listening to what you guys are talking about and learning, and I'll ask a question here and there. But if somebody asks a question regarding entrepreneurship or real estate or Airbnb, I'm going to always contribute. Because then I'll get feedback back when I have a question about something, right?
You're the go-to guy for that. You got to be humble. I think you have to be a teacher, but also a student at the same time. A lifelong student. A lot of people just try to talk. I have mentors younger than me. I have people same age as me. I have people older than me mentoring me as well too. I believe it's called a 33% rule. So 33% of the time you spend with people same age, your peer group, and then 33% of the time you spend people below. They're trying to get to your level, and you help them level up. And then remaining 33% of the time you spend people 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of you, because you're trying to get to their level. So I think having that mastermind, having that open mind where you're just trying to become a better person and become better every single day, I think is super important.
Oh, I agree 100%. The guy right now who is my good friend, good colleague, he makes me want to run through a wall because he is getting more units than me, and I get in a competitive mode.
It pushes you.
It pushes you. So he's 26 years old. I'm 36 years old, and he's doing so good, but he also gets the fire out of me, and I love talking to him for that. So I agree with that. Have people younger, older, same age. It's a different experience.
So Syed, tell us, where can we find you? If somebody is in touch with you, has questions, wants to follow you, where are all the channels we can find you?
So majority of my content is posted on Instagram. So follow me at Syed BNB. So SYED BNB. And you could hear about my story, see my lifestyle on my Instagram.
Amazing, amazing. Guys, he's an Airbnb expert. If you have any questions, reach out to him, DM him. Very humble guy. The guy's literally came from nothing to being a multimillionaire and making over, I don't know, God knows how much revenue you made over here at this point.
Since inception, I've passed $30 million of revenue.
Airbnb king, guys. This is a guy to go to.